Hey all. So, would I potentially get canceled by the internet if I were to call Oda a psychopath? Because that is literally all I can think about the man after reading this chapter. Okay, before even before I talk about rocks, and trust me, we'll get to that. This is one of those chapters where calling God Valley the Island of Fate truly is one of the most apt descriptions at this point, because holy hell in a fucking handbasket, I know it's been stated many times before, but God Valley truly is where so much of the story began. As to start off, we start off the chapter by confirming exactly what we all knew, that Shaki was the Celestial Dragon's grand prize in their human hunt, and Garling's intent at the time he was on that island was to take her as his wife. So what does the guy do? Kill the mother of his children and take his kids back to Marijua, or at least one of them, because we definitely know Shanks isn't making it off God Valley with his father and brother, as we know what happens with how he ends up with Roger. Of course, it doesn't stop there either, because this chapter also gives us a peek behind the curtain at Dragon's life when he was a Marine. He was there at God Valley when the whole thing was playing out, and honestly, just from this little snapshot of Dragon's life, it's not hard to see why he would choose to become he would choose the path of being this revolutionary figure, because God Valley was Dragon's Sensui moment. It was the moment in time where he saw the true horrors of the world and humanity on full display, with people being treated like caged animals by monsters wearing human faces. Yes, that is what I'm calling celestial dragons, engaging in their most depraved indulgences. Seriously, even I would say fuck this shit. Even I would say fuck this shit after seeing all this. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that this is also the chapter where we see the origins of the man, the myth, the absolute goat of a legend himself, Morgans, and just seeing the comparison of how he started out so small time to the absolute powerhouse he is today, but how even back then he was still making the government his bitch back then. It was like, yeah, this is definitely Morgans. Man was already a pretty much demon on demon timing as far as being a reporter goes. All right though, so let's talk about rocks though, because oh boy, there's a lot to talk about. The fact that God Valley is actually his home, or just is kind of one of those things that I think we kind of had suspicions about, but getting that confirmation and just knowing like the sheer tragedy that he would die on God Valley, in order to never see his wife and son again, that is kind of that is basically a lot, like a lot of narrative poetry at work. That, yeah, it was he died, but he died on God Valley, which was basically his very home and the one he wanted to raise his child on. But ultimately, it ended up just becoming the site of this great big war that would shape the course of history. Or yeah, even how about the fact that we learn Rox's real name is Davy D. Zevek, a descendant of the legendary pirate Davy Jones, or Davy D. Jones as it's called, and that in itself already adds so many layers to Rox himself and how he managed as to how and why he changed his name solely to keep his family safe. Rox knew the dangers that would come from anyone being associated with him, and the name of not only D, but also Davy D added onto that. And with him, which in itself shows that for all of the one thing that One Piece is great at doing is humanizing people that are basically seen as villains in the eyes of the general public. And for me, this is one of those. This is again really a chapter that for really humanizes Rox in a way where, for all the titles and faces he's worn and for all the crimes he's committed against the government, at the end of the day, he was just a father who didn't want to see his family suffer for carrying his cursed name. And even more tragic is when you look at these events as a whole. his events as a whole, that ultimately he Rox would be doomed to kind of die without ever being reunited with his son or his or his wife, which ultimately would lead to basically the pretty much rise of Marshall D. Teach, aka Blackbeard. Like, it was almost like looking at what happened with Rox. It really was the point that really gave rise to pretty much Teach in the present. Now, having said that, let's talk about implications of the name itself and how it ties back to Teach. Because with the notion implanted in our heads now that Davy Jones was a pirate that lived during the Void Century, I'd almost be willing to bet, much like Roger and Rox and now Luffy and Teach, I'm almost kind of wondering if Davy Jones and Joy Boy also had it out, like that they were two men of D who ended up on the opposites, who ended up fighting on the opposite sides of history, just pretty much not for just pretty much and ended up in the exact same situation that all these, that again, Roger and Luffy are in now. Like, it's just a constant clash of, it's a constant, it's like the weird thing of a constant fated struggle playing out for generations. And I almost bet it did happen with Davy Jones and Joy Boy. But even more so than that, this reveal in itself really made me question the nature of Davy Jones's, the Davy side of the D-Clan, because even though we haven't seen it with Rox, I think we more or less did get our answer as to how Teach is able to use more than one devil fruit. Like, something about his bloodline, his connection to his ancestor Davy Jones, is what allows him to harness dual powers without his body giving way to the pressure of wielding so much power, which again just begs the question, what kind of man was Davy Jones to begin with? Or hell, was he even a man at all? Because as I've come to learn, there's a couple different variations of Davy Jones in history, so it's a question of which version Oda's going with, but I imagine it'll be an amalgamation of the one we're most familiar with, while mixed in with his own take that fits the history of the Void Century, I think. With that said, yeah, I don't know if it was a mistranslation or if Oda just revealed that Teach was a sibling we were unaware of. I have to assume it's a mistranslation, but in either case, we see that Dragon was the one who basically discovered Teach and his mother, and this is one of those times where fate truly does work in the most absurd of ways. Like, even though it's hard to predict what someone will do or what path they'll take, in a way, Dragon saving Teach did kind of put the world on the course that it is now, at least in the ways that Blackbeard is influencing it in the present. And again, the fact that it was Dragon who saved Teach adds to this weird poetic irony, especially knowing the conflicts that would happen between Blackbeard pirates and the revolutionaries. Like, just knowing that that they would come to blows in the future, it kind of makes this one moment in time of Dragon saving Teach all the more kind of ironic in a way. But just on a more general level as well, though, it is kind of terrifying in its own way to think that although Rox died that day on God Valley, it is Dragon who prevented the bloodline of Davy Jones from being snuffed out by saving Teach. And everything we have gotten with Rox, Teach and Dragon in this chapter, it does make me believe even more that we need to see kind of the reunion with Luffy and Dragon to kind of get a full picture of, from basically his perspective of what happened that day. Like, there's basically a lot that I feel Dragon is keeping locked, that Dragon is kind of keeping locked away in terms of his own history, and I feel we're not going to get a full picture of all that until we get the reunion between father and son with this one. And yeah, to end this review off, though, let's talk about Harold, because for me, one of the most interesting things about his character throughout the entire back half of this flashback to me is just how all of Harold's genuine and good intentions were basically warped. Had warped his perceptions and morals. As much as he valued Rox's friendship, he valued the safety of Elbaf even more, so much that he kind of, in a way you could say, Harold kind of pushed himself against the wall of believing that there was only ever the one option. Like, Harald became more and more desperate to secure the safety and security of his people that he couldn't even see the political ramifications, the potential ramifications of what would come from this. Like, it really is like a tragic tale of how good intentions are paved in blood and can change a noble man from being something he's not. Yet it is the tale. It is his tale as old as time with humanity itself. We do what we feel we have to for the sake of the ones we love, even if it takes us down a dark path, especially if we feel we don't have any other choice. And more than anything, this chapter I feel is really making us understand why Harald tore his own horns off. Like, this incident with rocks, I believe, did break him to the point where tearing his horns off was meant as a way to reaffirm his conviction to fight for peace and not just let the government control Elbaf in the way that in the way that Rocks had said would happen, which invariably led to his death and the current state of things in the present. So it's like, it's kind of like seeing kind of just his like Harald's like downfall, I guess you could say, is kind of intriguing to see when looking at it, the big picture of it all. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Blue Sky, Analyst Crunchyroll, be sure to notification bell, hit the subscribe button, and just share it around, guys. Dark Knight Running, signing off. Later, everyone.